My name is Darren. I live in a quiet little town where nothing much ever happens. We all know each other, and life runs on routine. But one summer evening, that sense of comfort unraveled. I was hosting one of my regular dinner parties. My closest friends were all invited: Megan, Sean, Lila, and Jordan. We shared food, laughter, stories. It felt like any other warm, easy evening, except for one new face. Lila had brought someone new, her neighbor, Theo. He had recently moved into town. Tall, soft-spoken, with a kind of distant sadness behind his eyes. He was polite, but clearly nervous. I figured he just needed time to warm up to everyone. Dinner went smoothly. The food was good, the wine kept pouring, and the conversation drifted into everything from old memories to strange dreams. But Theo barely spoke. He just sat there, tense, watching. After dessert, we all moved to the living room. That's when the atmosphere started to shift. Theo suddenly became agitated, his eyes darting to the windows, hands clenching and unclenching. Nobody said anything, but we all noticed. Then, without warning, Theo stood up and muttered something under his breath. I tried to ask if he was okay, but he rushed to the door and disappeared into the night. The rest of us sat in confused silence. It was so abrupt, so strange, but eventually we shrugged it off and tried to enjoy the rest of the night. Still, I couldn't shake the image of his face right before he left, like he'd seen something the rest of us couldn't. The next day, I stopped by Theo's place just to check on him. His car was in the driveway, lights off. I knocked several times, no answer. I tried calling, but it rang endlessly. I figured maybe he just needed space. But days passed, then weeks, and nobody saw or heard from him again. I contacted the police. They searched his house, asked us all for statements, even brought in dogs at one point, but there was nothing. His belongings were all still there: wallet, keys, even his phone. It was as if he had simply vanished. The strangest part, the police found a journal in his bedroom. I wasn't supposed to see it, but an officer I knew showed me a few pages. Most of it was rambling, paranoia. He wrote about something watching him, something he couldn't escape. One entry stuck with me. It follows me everywhere. It knows when I'm near people. I thought I could hide here, blend in, but it came to the dinner party. It was there. I saw it outside the window while everyone laughed. I remember feeling a chill as I read that. Was Theo hallucinating, paranoid, or did he truly believe something had followed him to my home? In the months that followed, I started noticing little things. At first, it was just a strange sound, late at night, like whispering wind, even when it was still outside. Then the lights flickered in the living room every few nights, only for a second, always around the same time. I told myself it was nothing, but then, one night I saw it. I had just gotten out of the shower and was walking to my bedroom when I passed by the front window. Something was standing across the street. Not a person, not really, just a figure. Too tall, too thin, completely motionless. No features, no face, just there. By the time I blinked, it was gone. I didn't sleep that night, and the worst part was knowing, deep down, I'd seen the same thing Theo described. Maybe he had seen it that night. Maybe it hadn't been paranoia. Maybe he was right. It's been over a year since Theo disappeared. The case went cold. People forgot. But not me, because every few weeks, I still hear it. The faint whispering outside my window. And sometimes, when I walk past my front door, I swear I feel someone watching from the other side. I don't host dinner parties anymore. My friends think I'm just being paranoid, but I know better. Something came that night. Something followed him, and it didn't leave. It waits, and now I understand why he ran. It was just past midnight when my son, Marcus, stumbled into the house. I was already in bed, half asleep, when I heard the front door creak open. Moments later, his friend Darren appeared in the hallway, holding Marcus up by the arm. Marcus was clearly drunk, slurring, barely able to walk. His clothes were rumpled and his eyes glassy. "Sorry," Darren said quietly. He overdid it tonight. I didn't ask many questions. I was just grateful Darren had brought him home safe. Together, we helped Marcus upstairs. Darren was calm and polite the entire time, even as Marcus muttered nonsense and collapsed into bed. I thanked Darren, and he gave a nod before heading out into the night. That night, I stood outside Marcus's room for a few moments. I felt something, an unease I couldn't name. I chalked it up to motherly worry and went to sleep. Life returned to normal the next morning. Marcus barely remembered the night before, except that he'd had too much to drink. Darren checked in later that day, like everything was fine. Months passed. Marcus and Darren remained close. They'd been friends for years, so I never thought twice about their time together. Until the news report. It was a rainy Sunday. I was making coffee when the television in the living room caught my attention. A local anchor was reporting live from outside a hotel. A young man had been found dead inside one of the rooms, brutally murdered. The killer had apparently signed the victim and himself using a fake ID and vanished by morning. Then they showed the sketch. My heart stopped. The suspect looked exactly like Darren. I dropped my coffee, rushed to call Marcus. He answered, confused. "Mom, what's wrong?" "Turn on the news," I said. Minutes later, he called me back. His voice was shaking. That looks like Darren, but it can't be." He didn't sound convinced. We did the only thing we could. We contacted the police. Officers arrived later that day and sat with Marcus for hours. He told them everything he knew. The nights out, Darren's personality. That time he brought him home. It all seemed innocent, but I saw the same question in Marcus's eyes that had been haunting me. What if that night had been a test run? What if Marcus had been meant to be the victim? The investigation moved quickly. Darren, or whoever he really was on the run. More details surfaced. This wasn't the first time someone had been found like that. He had a pattern: lure a friend into a vulnerable state, isolate them in a hotel, and disappear. Police found footage of Darren helping his most recent victim into the hotel. The way he smiled into the lobby cameras made my stomach turn. Marcus changed after that. He became quieter, more distant. I caught him staring off into space sometimes, lost in thought. One evening, he finally spoke. "Do you think it was supposed to be me?" I had no answer. Eventually, the police caught Darren, under a different name, in another state. He was hiding in a rundown motel, alone. The news said he was calm during arrest, as if none of it mattered. He confessed to nothing, but the evidence was overwhelming. He's now serving a life sentence. But that doesn't mean the story ended. For Marcus, the damage lingered. He stopped going out, lost trust in everyone. He told me once that he couldn't even listen to music without thinking about that night, how easily he had passed out, unaware of the danger right next to him. And I couldn't stop thinking about how close we came, about the fact that the only reason Marcus was still alive might have been because I heard the door open, because I was awake, because I was there. Darren had looked me in the eyes that night. He smiled, he thanked me, and somewhere in that smile was a secret I'll never forget. We used to think monsters were something you only saw in movies, but now I know better. They wear familiar faces. They walk through your front door. It was one of those nights where boredom gets the better of you. Me, Brandon, my girlfriend Kayla, and our two friends, Liam and Jessa, were out driving aimlessly around the outskirts of town. It was September, the kind of night where the cold sneaks up on you, but the air is still clear, and the sky is lit by a pale, full moon. We weren't looking for trouble, just something to do. Liam mentioned an old abandoned house near the edge of town, the one that people whispered about during high school, but never actually dared to enter. He grinned when he brought it up, but we could all tell he was half serious when he said, "Let's go." We all laughed nervously, but nobody said no. The house sat behind a line of trees off a gravel road, partially hidden by overgrown brush. It looked worse than I imagined, like it had folded in on itself over the years. The windows were shattered, and the porch sagged under its own weight. A no trespassing sign was nailed crookedly to a tree nearby, barely legible anymore. We parked far enough away that no one would notice the car and made our way up the overgrown path with flashlights. As soon as we stepped onto the porch, the air felt different, still, heavy. Inside, the house was dead silent, except for our footsteps crunching on broken glass and debris. The smell of rotten mildew clung to everything. We split into pairs. Kayla and I headed upstairs, while Liam and Jessa explored the first floor. The upper level was filled with what was left of bedrooms: torn curtains, empty bed frames, cracked mirrors. One room had an old rocking chair, turned to face the window, as if someone had just been sitting in it. The wood groaned beneath our steps with each move. Kayla reached for my arm. "Can we not stay up here long?" I nodded. I felt it too, like we were being watched. Then we heard it, a loud crash from downstairs. We froze. My blood turned cold. "Liam," I called out. No answer. We rushed down the stairs, our flashlights flickering. The front door was now shut, but no one had touched it. Jessa and Liam were nowhere in sight. We called out again, louder this time. Then we heard whispering, soft, low, coming from the back of the house. We followed the sound to a narrow hallway that led to a rusted door. Behind it was the basement. The door was already open. There was no reason to go down there. Everything in me screamed to leave, but we couldn't leave our friends. Kayla and I descended the old wooden stairs into the dark, musty basement. Our lights scanned the room. Rows of shelves, broken jars, scattered tools, and then we saw them. Liam and Jessa stood completely still in the far corner, backs to us. They weren't speaking. They weren't moving, just standing there in the shadows. "Hey," I shouted. "What are you doing?" No response. We approached slowly. "Guys." Liam suddenly turned around. His face was blank, empty. Then, as if waking from a trance, he blinked and stumbled back. "Dude, how did we get down here?" he asked, genuinely confused. Jessa looked just as shaken. She kept glancing at the floor, like she had seen something she couldn't explain. Before we could ask anything else, a loud thump came from upstairs, like a door slamming shut. We froze. Then came footsteps, slow, deliberate, pacing the floor above. We turned off our flashlights and held our breath. The footsteps moved toward the basement door, then stopped. Seconds passed. Then the trapdoor began to creak open. We saw a silhouette, tall, hunched, descending slowly down the stairs. None of us spoke. The figure stepped into the light of the basement, pale, sunken face, long, tangled hair. His eyes looked glassy, lifeless, but locked onto us. Kayla gasped, and the figure twitched toward the sound. We ran. I don't remember how we got out. I just remember the sounds, stomping, panting, the crash of something falling behind us. We didn't stop running until we hit the gravel road and saw the car. We drove in silence. No one said a word until we were back in town. Liam asked, "What was he doing down there?" No one answered. None of us ever went back. We didn't talk about it again. It was like making eye contact with something you're not supposed to see. Like we were warned. The house still stands. But every now and then, when someone goes missing around that area, people whisper about the man in the basement. The one who never leaves. The one who waits. And I believe them because we saw him. Back in 2016, I lived alone in a small one-bedroom apartment just outside of Boston. Nothing fancy, just enough space for me, a couch, and my bed. It had always been a quiet building. Most of the neighbors were elderly, and everyone kept to themselves. One Saturday night, I was completely drained from the work week. I turned in early, around 9 p.m., hoping to catch up on sleep. The apartment was dark and still, the only sound the soft hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. I climbed into bed, pulled the covers up, and let the silence take me. I had vivid dreams that night, the kind that are strange but not quite nightmares, more like unsettling. I remember shadows and movement in the corner of my vision, but what scared me most was the feeling of being watched. When I finally snapped awake, everything was quiet. I groggily reached over to check the time, 3:33 a.m. It was still pitch dark. I sat up in bed and rubbed my eyes. Then I noticed something that made every hair on my body stand up. There was another bed in the room. It sat just a few feet from mine. Same size, same frame, same white sheets. But I didn't own a second bed, and my apartment wasn't big enough to just not notice something like that. I froze staring at it. I could make out a lump beneath the covers. Someone was lying in it. The sheet was pulled up completely over their head. No movement, no sound. For several seconds I couldn't breathe. My mind scrambled for explanations. Had I been sleepwalking and dragged a mattress in from the street? Was this a dream I hadn't woken from? I slowly stood up. My knees felt like jelly. I didn't want to get any closer, but I needed to know, needed to see if this was even real. I reached for the light switch, hand shaking. When the room lit up, the second bed was still there, still occupied, still unmoving. I edged closer. The sheet was thin, worn, almost translucent in the light. I could make out the outline of a body underneath, arms folded neatly, legs straight, but the head remained hidden beneath the sheet. I whispered, "Who are you?" No answer. I leaned closer, holding my breath. Then the sheet moved, just slightly, a twitch. the kind of motion you see when someone's breathing or pretending to sleep. My voice caught in my throat. I took a step back, then the figure sat up, still completely covered, the white sheet slowly sliding down his shoulders, but never revealing a face. I didn't wait to see more. I bolted out of the bedroom, grabbing my phone on the way. I slammed the door behind me and backed into the kitchen, heart hammering in my chest. I dialed 911. When the dispatcher answered, I told them someone was in my apartment, someone who hadn't been there before. They told me to wait outside and help would arrive soon. I did exactly that. It was freezing, standing barefoot in the parking lot, watching my window, but I didn't care. The officers showed up 10 minutes later. I explained everything. They asked if I had any recent visitors. I told them no. No family nearby, no parties, nothing. 2 of them entered the apartment while I waited with the 3rd. After what felt like forever, they returned. "There's nothing in your apartment," one of them said. "No second bed, just yours." I blinked at him. "What do you mean?" "I saw it. It was right next to mine. Someone was in it." The officer looked at me with quiet concern. Doors were locked, windows too. Everything looks normal. They offered to walk me through the unit again. When we entered the bedroom, I felt sick. There was only one bed, no sheets out of place, no signs of a second frame, nothing. They left shortly after, suggesting I might have had a night terror. I nodded, but I knew what I saw. That wasn't a dream. That second bed had been real. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat on my couch with the lights on, staring down the hallway toward the bedroom. Over the next few days, I tried to convince myself it was my mind playing tricks. Stress, exhaustion, something rational, but the feeling never left me. Every night, I'd enter my bedroom and hesitate, waiting for that second bed to be there again. It never was, but sometimes, late at night, I'd hear something. Fabric rustling, the groan of a mattress, breathing that didn't belong to me. And every time I woke at 3:33 a.m., I'd find myself staring into the same empty corner, expecting to see that sheet-covered figure sitting up and facing me. I eventually moved out, but even now, in a new apartment, I can't shake the memory. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, afraid to turn my head, because I know what I'll see. A second bed, and someone waiting beneath the sheets. It was around 1:45 a.m. when the chime above the door rang. I looked up from behind the counter, expecting the usual late-night regular grabbing gas or snacks. But this time, it wasn't a familiar face. It was a woman, mid-30s maybe, and she looked like she'd been through hell. Her clothes were torn, her face stained with tears, and in her arms she clutched a young boy, no older than 6 or 7. He didn't say a word, just clung to her like his life depended on it. "Can I use your phone?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Please." I nodded and handed her the store phone. She took it with trembling fingers and dialed, her voice low and frantic as she spoke into the receiver. I didn't want to eavesdrop, but I caught words like, "Can't go home, he's looking for us, and please help." She hung up after a minute and looked at me with wide, desperate eyes. "Can we stay here for a while?" she asked. "Of course," I said, grabbing a couple bottled waters and snacks and setting them on the counter. "You're safe here." She gave a weak smile, then led the boy to a chair near the coffee station. He sat quietly, chewing on a candy bar, eyes scanning the door every few seconds. She kept glancing at the window, like she expected someone to come bursting in. About an hour passed. The store was quiet, except for the soft buzz of the lights and the hum of the refrigerator. I was just about to ask if she wanted me to call the police when the front door slammed open. A man stormed in. He was tall, with wild eyes and a furious look on his face. He locked eyes with the woman immediately and pointed at her. "There you are," he barked. "Get up. You're coming with me." She froze, clutching the boy tighter. I stepped in front of him before he could get close. "Sir," I said firmly, "you need to leave." "Now." He glared at me. "This doesn't concern you." "She's not going anywhere," I said, picking up the phone behind the counter. "Leave before I call the cops." That's when he lunged. He knocked the phone out of my hands and tried to shove me aside. I shouted for him to back off and grabbed a heavy flashlight from under the counter. The boy started crying. The woman was screaming. I raised the flashlight and yelled again for him to stop. He didn't, so I hit him, right across the side of the head. He stumbled back, dazed but still furious. Before he could recover, I grabbed the phone off the floor and dialed 911 with trembling fingers. "He's here," I told the dispatcher. "Violent man threatening a woman and child. We need help now." The dispatcher stayed on the line as I moved toward the woman and the boy, putting myself between them and the man. He started pacing, muttering under his breath, his fists clenched tight. Then he made for the back exit, but just as he reached it, flashing blue and red lights lit up the parking lot. The cops were fast. Within seconds, 2 officers burst through the front door with weapons drawn. The man froze, then raised his hands. The woman collapsed into a chair, shaking. The boy just cried silently into her shoulder. They cuffed the man and escorted him out to the squad car. One of the officers stayed behind to take the woman's statement. That's when I learned the truth. He was her ex, abusive, dangerous. She'd left him earlier that night, grabbing her son and fleeing with nowhere else to go. She'd been driving around aimlessly, hoping to find somewhere safe. She saw the gas station lights and pulled in, praying for help. She got lucky. The officer called a domestic violence unit, and a social worker came to pick her up. They were placed into a shelter that same night. Before she left, she turned to me, tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know what would have happened if we hadn't stopped here." I didn't know what to say. I just nodded and watched her walk out of the store, her son still clinging to her side. The station was quiet again, but it didn't feel the same. The buzz of the lights, the distant traffic, it all felt a little heavier now. Sometimes, when I worked the night shift, I still think about her. The way she looked when she came in, the way he looked when he burst through the door, and how close they came to not making it out. My name is Darren, and for the most part, I've lived a quiet, uneventful life. I work as a night janitor at a community college just outside of town. The hours are long, the halls are always empty, and I've come to appreciate the silence. That is, until last spring, when something started watching me. It began in the bathroom on the 3rd floor. I was finishing up the usual cleaning routine, emptying trash bins, wiping down surfaces, when I stepped into the men's room to mop the floors. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead like they always did, buzzing faintly, as if the building itself was alive. As I bent over the sink to scrub away grime, something caught my eye in the mirror. A shadow. Not mine. Not shaped like mine. I whipped around. No one was there. The stall doors were all open. The room was empty. I stood there for a while, heart thudding, chalking it up to fatigue. The late hours had started to blur my mind. I went back to work, but when I glanced at the mirror again, there it was, clearer this time. A figure in the back corner of the room. Tall, still, its head tilted to one side like it was studying me. But when I turned again, the corner was empty. I finished my shift and got the hell out of there. I didn't tell anyone. What could I say? I saw someone watching me in a mirror, but they weren't really there. No one would take me seriously. The next night, I avoided that bathroom entirely, but strange things started happening elsewhere. Mirrors fogging up, even when the air was cold and dry. My reflection lagging, just for a moment, as if it moved a half second too slow. I tried to ignore it, to convince myself I was just tired, stressed, overworked. Then came the message. It was about 2 weeks in. I walked past the faculty lounge and glanced at the wall mirror hanging by the coffee machine. There, in smeared condensation, were 4 words. "He lives in glass." I froze. My hands went numb. I hadn't written that. No one had. The mirror had been cleaned that morning. I turned and checked the room. Empty. I didn't clean it. I didn't touch it. That night, I didn't finish my rounds. I left an hour early, breaking my routine for the first time in years. The next night, I considered calling in sick, but I needed a paycheck, so I went in. I shouldn't have. Everything was quiet at first. I was in the main lobby, sweeping near the glass entrance, when I noticed something strange in the reflection. The building was empty, but in the glass, someone was standing behind me. I spun around. No one. I checked every hallway, every room, every closet. Nothing. But when I returned to the glass wall, he was there again, standing farther away now, watching, still, unmoving. He wasn't a shadow this time. He was real, pale skin, hollow eyes, wearing something dark and formal, like an old funeral suit. His mouth didn't move, but somehow I heard him whisper, "Let me out." The reflection fogged, and a coldness flooded the air. My breath became visible. I stepped back, heart racing, then ran for the janitor's office and locked the door. I didn't leave until sunrise. When I told my supervisor the next morning, he didn't laugh. He just looked tired and said, "You've seen him too, huh?" That stopped me cold. He explained that I wasn't the first. former janitors, night staff, even one campus security guard. Several had reported seeing the same thing. A man in the mirrors, a figure that didn't belong. The school had been built in the 1960s, and a maintenance worker had once died there, under suspicious circumstances. No body was ever found, just blood and a shattered mirror. They said he used to work nights, alone, just like me. And now, he watches. The school tried to cover it up, said it was urban legend, that it helped keep students from breaking in after dark. But the staff all knew better. Now I avoid mirrors. I cover them when I can. If I catch a glimpse of one, I never look directly, just enough to avoid walking into something. I won't risk seeing him again, because the last time I did, he smiled. My name is Kara, and I used to walk my dog, June, through the same neighborhood every morning before work. It was a peaceful part of town, quiet streets, trimmed hedges, and tidy houses lined up like they'd been copied and pasted. Nothing ever changed. That's why I noticed it right away. One morning, as the sun was barely rising, a house appeared at the end of Sycamore Lane. A house that wasn't there yesterday. At first, I assumed I'd missed it somehow. Maybe it had been under renovation, or hidden behind scaffolding or trees I didn't pay attention to. But no, I knew that corner. I passed it every day for the past 3 years. It had been an empty lot, grass, nothing more. Now, there was a narrow 2-story house, gray shutters, a black roof. Every window was closed, blinds drawn. A thin concrete path led up to a faded green front door. Something about it made my stomach twist. June growled as we walked by. She's a friendly dog who rarely reacts to anything, but this time she froze. Her ears flattened, and she let out a low, rattling growl I'd never heard from her before. I tugged the leash. Come on, girl, let's keep moving. She wouldn't budge until we crossed the street. The next day, I brought my phone to snap a picture of the strange house, but when we reached the end of the lane, it was gone. No house, just the same empty lot I'd always known. No sign of construction, no tire tracks, no foundation, just grass. I stood there, staring, my heart racing. Was I going crazy? Had I dreamed the whole thing? That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying the image of the house, those drawn blinds, that ugly green door. At around 3 a.m., I gave up on trying to rest. I got up, pulled on my sweatshirt, and walked to the corner of Sycamore Lane. The house was back, exactly as it was. Lights off, windows shut, the door still sealed tight, except this time, the blinds in the upstairs window were slightly open. Someone, or something, was watching me. I grabbed June's leash and backed away. The next morning, the house was gone again. I tried to tell a few friends at work, but I could see it in their eyes. They thought I was messing with them or losing it. Maybe I was, but I knew what I saw, so I did something stupid. That night, I went back and I brought a flashlight. The house was there, waiting. The air felt wrong as I stepped off the sidewalk, like the air had gone thicker, harder to breathe. June refused to come with me. She yanked away, barking like mad, then bolted back home. I let her go. I walked up the short path to the porch. The wood creaked under my feet. When I reached the front door, I didn't knock. I turned the handle. It was unlocked. The smell hit me first, stale and sour, like wet clothes left in the dark too long. The air was freezing. My flashlight flickered as I stepped inside. The inside didn't match the outside. It was huge. Endless rooms, too many doorways, hallways that turned in impossible directions. The walls seemed to move when I wasn't looking. I tried to leave, but every time I turned back, the door was farther away. That's when I heard it. Footsteps, but not behind me. Above me, someone, or something, was walking slowly across the floorboards overhead. Then another set of steps, then another. Too many. Moving fast. I panicked, ran down the nearest hallway. Every door I tried was locked. I kept running until I found one slightly ajar. I pushed it open and slipped inside. It was a nursery. Dust-covered toys, a mobile slowly spinning above an empty crib. Then a whisper behind me. You shouldn't have come back. I turned, flashlight trembling. Standing in the corner was a figure, pale, faceless. Its arms hung long at its sides, fingertips grazing the floor. It didn't move. It just watched. Then it stepped forward, and everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was lying in the grass of the empty lot. June was beside me whining. The house was gone. Again. I didn't tell anyone this time. What could I say? that I walked into a house that wasn't real, that something faceless chased me through a place that bent time and space. I walk a different route now. I don't go near Sycamore Lane, but sometimes at night I feel it calling again, and sometimes, just sometimes, I think I see the shape of a roof in the distance where the empty lot still waits, and I know the house is watching me now.